Check mic 1 2, check mic 1 2.
All right, y'all, here's the plan. Roll some dice, add a 0, read that many pages. My name's Chris, and I know how to read, allegedly. And this is episode whatever of Brave New World. Let's go.
All right, y'all, day 1 of whatever episode of Brave New World this is. It's currently a little later than I would like. It's actually about 8:39, which is later than I would like to start these videos, but I just decided about 45 minutes ago that I wanted to make a Brave New World video, and I wanted to start today. Really quickly, let's go over some of the books that hopefully we're gonna get through in today's video. First and foremost, Dune by Frank Herbert. I've made a whole video about this last week. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. Also, if you haven't heard of Dune, what are we doing, you know? I'm a little bit more than halfway through it. I think I'm like 64% of the way through the book, and I was using the audiobook when I made my video on Dune, but for a Brave New World video, I'm kind of just gonna institute the rule that we're just not gonna use audiobooks. These two books right here have been on my TBR for so damn long, and I've been wanting to read these for forever. I got a couple gift cards for Barnes & Noble for my birthday, and I saw these were still there, and I went and copped. First up, we have There Is Always This Year by Hanif Abdurraqib. Growing up in Columbus, Ohio in the 1990s, Hanif Abdurraqib witnessed a golden era of basketball, one in which legends like LeBron James were forged and countless others weren't. His lifelong love of the game leads Abdurraqib into a lyrical, historical, and emotionally rich exploration on what it means to make it, who we think deserves success, the tension between excellence and expectation, and the very notion of role models. I mean, you could tell, like, I kind of love basketball, but one of the things that I've struggled to find in a lot of books relating to basketball is basketball as a storytelling kind of avenue and not just the story. It's really hard to find books about sports that aren't just like biographies or a history of the sport or someone in the sport. A quick Google search tells me that this book is a personal memoir, uses basketball as a lens, cultural commentary, focusing on community and place, a little bit more than just a nostalgic looking back of basketball, which is the exact type of story that I've been looking for. And like, this has been, I think this book came out in 2023 or 2024, and like, I've wanted to read it ever since. Like, I damn near cried when I bought this book at Barnes & Noble. I've been waiting for this for so long. Another book that the New York Times rated the top 10 books of 2024. Just another thing that I love so much. It is seafaring, it is this pirate nature, it is adventure, it is exploration, but with this right here, this is The Wide, Wide Sea by Hampton Sides. On the back, it says Hampton Sides' bravura account wrestles with Cook's legacy and provides a thrilling narrative of the titanic efforts and continual danger that characterized exploration in the 1700s, at once a ferociously paced story of adventure on the high seas and a searching examination of the complexities and consequences of the age of exploration. The Wide, Wide Sea is a major work from one of our finest narrative nonfiction writers. And again, I only read like a little blurb for my New York Times like list review video, but one of the things that got me from reading this part on the back is that thing where it says narrative nonfiction. I'm starting to realize that narrative nonfiction is one of my favorite genres. I have really high hopes for The Wide, Wide Sea, as I do with There's Always This Year, and even Dune has already like blown my mind in terms of like what sci-fi can be, but specifically with narrative nonfiction, I kind of got my start with that with, where is it? We have it right here, Nelson A. Dennis's War Against All Puerto Ricans. This is a book discussing Puerto Rico's history and its fight for statehood and the revolutions that occurred on the island. But this book is told as a narrative nonfiction through a bunch of interviews and research and newspaper articles and stuff like that. So I'm very interested to see what Hampton Sides does with this story of like seafaring exploration. And I want to see kind of how it compares to kind of the more journalistic reporting efforts of Nelson A. Dennis and War Against All Puerto Ricans. I don't know if it'll focus, but we're going to go with this little orange dice today, not just because we have a basketball book. Basketball is orange, not just because the sands of Arrakis are also orange, but because golden hour sunset on the cover here. So I think starting out with an orange die isn't a terrible idea. We have our orange dice right here. How many pages are we going to be reading for day 1 of this episode of Brave New World? Let's go. And as we lose focus, we get 90 pages ain't that bad, actually. We love a below 10. I love a 16, 17, 18, but we also love a below 10. I think I'm gonna knock Dune out of the running right now just because I spent a whole week listening to the audiobook and reading Dune, so I'm kind of duned out for the time being. And I think off rip, I think we're going with There's Always This Year. I've been so hyped to read this. Like, I know that Hanif Abdul-Rakib is like a poet, and he's also like a novelist and an essayist, so I'm very excited to see what his writing style is. I don't know anything about him or his writing style besides what is said on the back of this book right here. But I'm so excited to read this. Let's just get started. Hey, we got a new channel mascot. This is my dog, Maurice. I know he's a moose. He's also my dog, Maurice. You mess with him, you mess with me. I'm a paragraph in, and this man's poetic as hell. What are we doing? It took until page 5 of the prelude to find something to highlight. All right, what's good, y'all? Day 2 of this episode of Brave New World. Like I said last night, this book is one of them ones. One of them ones. One of them ones. I think technically I read 91 pages. I wanted to do some selected readings of this book because this book is a lot more about life and death and greatness than I thought it would be. And it just does a very good job of using basketball as its avenue to talk about those things. There was a group of high school and eventually college basketball players called the Fab Five. And Hanif Abdul-Rakib talks about how one of the things that made them so both popular in certain areas of the United States and also very unpopular in certain areas of the United States was the amount of shit that they talked. And he took such an interesting position on shit talking, specifically in a sport, but also just in general. He says, isn't shit talking some kind of love to say you are worthy of the time it takes to dismantle you? Yes, do not waste your language on enemies, but an enemy to me implies a permanence, a thorn that cannot be removed. An opponent is different than an enemy, even if you see that opponent twice a year. If you know you're good, an opponent is a temporary roadblock, something to be taken apart and moved out of the way. Banger. Banger by Abdul-Rakib. He was talking about Michael Jordan's greatness and how Michael Jordan has never been cooler than when he was, I think it was at the 85 dunk contest, if I'm not mistaken, yes. And he dunked from the free throw line, his gold chain was like dangling, and he says, I believe no gold to be subtle. I believe nothing to be subtle when it can be snatched from a neck in order to feed a family. But Mike said, again, you're going to have to catch me. You're going to have to climb, and I know you want no part of the world from this high up. Find the point where you are unkillable and jump toward it if you can. Absolute banger. And like, this is all basketball stuff, and he begins talking about like the aging process and life, and most importantly, death. I don't want to say 5-star just yet. Maybe the latter 2/3 of this book are absolute trash, but holy hell. So far, every expectation I've had for this book has been met. We still have the wide, wide sea here, however, and if we get a large number, I don't want to get burned out on There's Always This Year, even though I'm like very much enjoying it so far. I did have to read 90 pages yesterday. So I think if we get a small number, I will go to There's Always This Year. If we get a big number, we will start the Wide, Wide Sea. And I don't know exactly if I'm going to be reading Dune in this video. I'm really liking the audiobook, so I might just stick to listening to the audiobook and not use it for this video. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see. Switching to camera number 2, we're also going to be staying with the orange dye. I feel like it fits the theme of these books right here. So it's still on 9 from yesterday. Let's give it some mojo. Let's see what number of pages we are going to have to read today. 14. We have 140 pages to read today. So I think with that in mind, we are going to start the Wide, Wide Sea. And also with that in mind, 140 pages gets us a decent chunk of the way through the book. That gets us about 40% of the way through this book, and the font, pretty small. So this is going to be a pretty big undertaking. I will also say I do have a lot of things to do today, so I feel like a lot of this reading is going to happen after I get back from work. I don't know exactly how much B-roll I'm going to be able to do because I have to do a whole bunch of laundry and a whole bunch of meal prep for the week, and our laundry machine's been going crazy and it's just loud as hell, so I don't want that to interrupt the viewing experience for you guys. But I think I'm going to take a little break from 5-star prediction number 1 and get started on 5-star prediction number 2, The Wide, Wide Sea by Hampton Sides. We got 140 pages to read. Let's go.
Many hours later.
All All right, y'all, so we are going to have a pretty big time jump from the last time I recorded, and I apologize for that. This morning, I had maintenance people in the apartment trying to fix our washing machine and our dishwasher for a few hours, so I wasn't able to get any B-roll or anything like that. I was able to get the roll for today, which we're going to get to in a second, but first, I wanted to talk about the 140 pages that I read of The Wide Sea. I'll start off by saying I have really enjoyed this book so far, but I do think I made a mistake by choosing to read 140 pages of this book specifically in one go. Because while I have enjoyed James Cook's story and all the setup, and Hampton Sides does a really good job of writing this narrative nonfiction, I do think that just 140 pages straight, pretty late at night, was kind of a rough go for me. There was a period of time where I thought I failed this challenge because at around like 2 in the morning, I just fully went to sleep and I woke up at like 2:45. I did finish the reading and I actually did go over this morning while the maintenance people were still here. Some of the reading I did last night that I was a little bit more fuzzy on. So what did we get out of the first 140 pages of The Wide Sea? First, James Cook, our boy on the cover right here. I love when the preface of a book starts out with the author being like, hey, I'm going to talk about one guy specifically. Historically, a lot of people are going to say he's a bad dude, but he did some good things. And this fateful final voyage of Captain James Cook that it says on the cover here, it's actually his 3rd voyage for the British government. And at this point, James Cook, big dude, right? Like he has gone further than a lot of explorers in Britain have gone, and he has discovered a lot of things for the British government that have given a claim to the British government and also to himself as a navigator, as a captain, as an astronomer, as a mathematician. Like this guy, by his final voyage, big dog. And this final voyage has a few reasons, right? Of course, it's the British government. They want to make claims on land, like they want to discover new areas. There's also another character. His name is May or Mai. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but he was like a refugee that the British government took in from a raid that they were a part of. It's this whole backstory that honestly doesn't have a lot to do with James Cook, but I feel like kind of exemplifies this kind of imperialism that the British government was a part of, or throughout all of history, I should say. So as well as doing a bunch of stuff for the British Parliament, this final voyage was to return Mai to his village that he saw brutally get attacked by another like rival village, and he wants revenge on the people that killed like his family and stuff like that. So Mai had been raised essentially in British government, kind of a very Tarzan situation, like plucked out of this like his native land, I should say, and brought into quote unquote civilization. And these are the 2 characters we're following so far. So we have this established British man in James Cook, and then we have this like stranger in a strange land in May. And I kind of like this dichotomy of the 2 characters because they both come from different backgrounds, but they both have important parts, at least so far in the story. And one of the things that Sides kind of mentions in this book is how for someone who was a kind of a British government captain, like this very high official, not just in British government, but also like in British society, he was actually pretty okay when it came to like meeting people that didn't look like him. He was unique in the sense that he had a lot of respect for these indigenous cultures that he was discovering for the first time. And that was something that like a lot of captains in that time obviously did not share. But one of my favorite things that Sides has talked about in this book so far is like he's established, right? James Cook is. And we know how great and how awesome of a sailor and like a cartographer and an astronomer and a mathematician he is. But he is getting older at the time of his 3rd voyage. And we have just gotten to like around the like 115 to 145 mark, like that little section of pages. There has been a lot of conversation, not just by like the other people on the ship that James Cook is sailing with, but also from the people that knew him, like even after the fact. They're talking about how in his older age, James Cook has gotten kind of like a little iffy, right? Like his decision making has changed, his opinions on certain things has changed. While he is like a pretty like stand-up captain on a ship, his brutality and the way he like managed his ship has definitely shifted since his first 2 like very successful and very notorious in a good way voyages. Like this 3rd voyage, people are noticing a lot of changes in James Cook. Let's cut to the clip of the dice roll this morning. This is me trying to figure out how many ways I can show 3 with my hands, and it's actually 3 ways. That's pretty interesting. And we end up getting a 6, which I'm so happy for because I stayed up so late reading 140 pages of this. I decided to go back to There's Always This Year for these 60 pages because I was really enjoying it. And while I was enjoying kind of the history nonfiction style of writing that Sides is writing James Cook's story with, I kind of wanted something a little bit more poetic and something that gave you a little more to chew on mentally, if that makes sense. I was able to read a little bit this morning, but I was kind of just doing around the house stuff as well. So I read, I believe, 26 pages, so I still have a decent chunk of reading to go. But honestly, with how much I'm enjoying this book so far, I don't see the 40 or the 30 something pages that I have to read. I don't see that being any of an issue. I got a protein bar, I'm gonna get some water real quick, and we are going to finish our 60 pages for day 3 of this Brave New Roll video. Let's go.
Many hours later.
All right, y'all, it's pretty late. It's like 2 in the morning now. But we have finished our 60 pages, and I wanted to say this before we cut to tomorrow morning where we're going to be doing our next roll. The poetry in this book is actually crazy. In this kind of second half, we are getting a lot more about Abdul Rakib's backstory. And while the first, maybe first half of this book was very philosophical and kind of overarching, kind of a macro level of Abdul Rakib's life, I feel like in the second half, we're getting a lot more very specific situations, very specific life stories, life lessons that he's learning. And of course, the first part of this book had a lot of these moments, but this second part is getting a lot more specific, and we're getting to learn a lot more about Abdul Rakib as a person and how he grew up and where he is in his life, or at least what in his life at this point got him to where he is now, and I'm really enjoying that. All right, I'm tired, y'all. It's pretty late, but let's get some Z's, and I will catch up with y'all tomorrow morning. Let's go.
All right, y'all, we are on day 4. I'm from the fold, but I love me a threesome. DM delete a little secret. Lovely 60 pages of There's Always This Year read last night. And while I do think kind of the high of day 1 of wanting to read this book for so long, finally getting it in my hands and reading it, well, I think that high has kind of worn down a little bit. I think this is very much still a 5-star read. I forget what page I was on, at least so far, 5-star read so far. We still have about 170 pages of this book to go, but we have made a pretty decent chunk in it so far. We have to do our roll of the day. I got coffee going. I got breakfast going. Let's see how many pages we're reading on day 4. I'm so unprepared. Where's my phone? All right, y'all, let's see what we got going on today. Today's one of those days where I wouldn't really mind a super high number. Of course, like I have stuff to do, and it would still be a struggle to read 200 pages in a day or something like that. But I also think that I have this book, which I'm very excited to read, and I am enjoying Wide Sea. So if I ever want to take from There's Always This Year, I got a couple books, I got a couple options of stuff that I could go to so I don't have to read all 200 pages of one book. Camera has been switched over. We're gonna go right or left to right instead of right to left today. What are we feeling? I think I'm gonna drop it on the 17. I'm gonna drop it in on 17. Let's see what number we get. And we get 8. So what? We've had 9, 14, 6, and 8. Is this me DMing an actual game of D&D? These rolls are trash. I don't want to underestimate it though. 80 pages is nothing to sneeze at. But like I said, I have been enjoying There's Always This Year. I think I'm just going to read this until I get bored of it and then switch over to the Wide Sea. I think that's the plan. First and foremost though, let's have some coffee. Let's have some breakfast. Let's move our bodies a little bit at the gym, and then we can get to reading. My hair is a mess. That said, we did do our 80 pages of reading There's Always This Year, and I have thoughts. I'm really enjoying this book. I know I've said that a lot, but I think for a lot of reasons, this book is going to be a 5-star for me. At least it's shaping up to be that way with the maybe 7,500-ish pages that we have left. There's so much emotion and ambition and history in this book that I knew I was going to fall in love with it just by reading the blurb off the back. But then Abdul Rakib decides he wants to pop off from a writing perspective, from a prose perspective, and then it's like, oh, okay, he really got it like that. Couple excerpts I really like. He says, I didn't grow up in the church, but have spent enough time aligned with both religion and sports to know there is no gospel richer than the gospel of suffering, of living through large stretches devoid of pleasure for the sake of reaching some place beyond your current circumstances and feeling as though you have truly earned a right to be there. He goes on this big section in the book about LeBron's first time leaving Cleveland. And Abdul Rakib is a Cleveland native. He grew up seeing LeBron play in high school, and him leaving Cleveland to go to Miami was a big deal for him. That leads to a big section in the book about love and heartbreak. And at the same time he's talking about LeBron leaving, he's also talking about heartbreak with a partner in this passage. And he says, but no one will love you like we love you here. How can we get you to believe that's enough? That whatever is out there beyond this place we have loved each other is too uncertain to trust. Even if you're bored or unhappy, even if we don't dream in the same language anymore, we're familiar to each other. And that depth of knowing is an intimacy that can cover at least some of the sins that might otherwise tear us apart, isn't it? Banger! So what are the numbers that we've gotten so far? It's been like 9, 6, 14, and this was 8. That's pretty good. I'm expecting a 20. I'm going to be honest with y'all. 100% I am expecting a 20. All right, so we got the die right here. I want to put the 20 face up because that is what I'm expecting today. Let's see how many pages we are going to be reading. Last day, Brave New World, whatever number this episode is. What? Nat 1? I'm going to re-roll. Don't tell anybody. As we go into the Tome of Dice, how many pages are we reading? Day 5? Oh, where are you? 5. That ain't that bad, but on the last, whoa, we've gotten so lucky. 14 is the highest number we rolled. That's crazy. 5 is not that bad at all. I think what I'm going to do, I'm on page, what, 230, I said? We have a little intermission in There's Always This Year called On Hustle's White Men Can't Jump. This is a little 6-page intermission within the book. I'm going to do this intermission, and then I'm going to do, what is that, 44 pages into the Wide Wide Sea. I think that's a good split. I've definitely read more of this book than Wide Wide Sea, but I'm also maybe, this is a 5-star read. Wide Wide Sea, that's like maybe a 4 so far, unless like the latter half or the latter 2/3 of the book goes crazy. But right now I'm feeling 5-star this, 4-star Wide Wide Sea. Let's get through this intermission. Let's read our 40 pages of Wide Wide Sea, and then we can do our little wrap up towards the end of the video.
1 million zillion jillion dillion cotillion times later.
All right, y'all, that's gonna be 5 days down, a couple hundred pages read of these two beautiful books right here as we finish off this episode of Brave New World. Let's actually talk about what we finished reading last night. Y'all have already heard me sing my praises of this book. Hanif Abdul Rakib's writing is so cool, so poetic, very real, very like, at least for me, I would say, just very easy to relate to. I understand where he's coming from on a lot of things, and I see myself a lot in this author and the way that he writes. So shout out There's Always This Year. I still have a little bit more, or a little bit less, I should say, than halfway to go, but 5 stars already. I'm gonna call it now a 5. We ended up reading about 44 pages of the Wide Wide Sea last night, and I think I'm still going. I am about halfway, give or take. I think I'm gonna give this a 4-star as of right now. One of the things that we learn very on about James Cook as a person, both, you know, as a person himself and as a captain, is that he is very kind of low-key. He is very about his business. He knows what he's there to do. He knows what his job is. In a very Hamilton-esque turn, his wife burned all of their correspondence years after his death. So any information we could have gotten about who James Cook is, you know, as a father, as a husband, kind of beneath this whole mask that he has as like one of the greatest explorers and ship captains for Britain. We don't really have that, and I think I'm missing some of that in this book. And even though it was stated like early on, you can tell that like a lot of the situations where James Cook's like emotions might come out are told from other people's perspectives, and the journals that we have of Cook's are very much matter of fact, stating, you know, how the ship is doing, how the shipmates are doing, how the mission and the voyage that he's going on is going. But this is my style of book, and I will say again, when it came to, I don't know where it is on my shelf, stuff. But when it came to War Against All Puerto Ricans, I kind of struggled with the writing early on and then came to love it by the end. And War Against All Puerto Ricans turned out to be a 5-star book. So while I'm rating it 4 stars now, I think this has 5-star potential, especially like with how the last half of the book goes. But that's gonna be it for today's video, y'all. I hope you enjoyed me reading these 2 5-star predictions, and it looks like bare minimum 1 of them, maybe 2 of them are gonna end up being 5 stars, and we love to see it. If you wanna see more videos like this, or you wanna see Brave New World, or you just like hearing me talk about the books that I'm reading, make sure you like, leave a comment, and subscribe. All of that good business. I'll take one of them, I'll take all of them, depending on how nice you're feeling. Spoiler for next week's video. Yup, I think it's time. Do something that makes you happy, do something that makes you some money, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.